Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Double S Club. I am your host, Andrew Coley, aka Lord 905 on social medias, and my guest host and partner to the show, Mr. Remarkable. Say what up.
Yo, it's your boy Rohan Chambers. What's up? As you know,
All right, on today's show, we're just gonna skip the whole long blah blah blah. We're just gonna get into it. Like I put out a post on social media that started kind of a goddamn firestorm, and it really just like I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but apparently other people think it's a big deal, and it's perfect because we are both sitting on the opposite end of this, and it's the best thing to have is that the question is, do single people have the right to tell people who is in relationships advice? I personally think no, because I give you the best scenario for the way I look at it. Me, as a person in a relationship for damn near 11 years, is not going to tell a person who's in a marriage, what to do in their marriage. Because even though I've been in a long-term, like a long relationship, I have no idea the nuances of marriage. I would never even give advice on said thing because I have no idea on it. I don't know what it's like to have to share your life wholeheartedly with somebody like that. I don't know what it's like to have to share your last name, the burdens of family, all of it. So I would never, in my opinion, give a person something that would be altering to their relationship, like some advice that could be altering. I wouldn't even, I would say, yo, bro, that's not my expertise. Go find a counselor or one of your other married versions.
but
That's just the
wouldn't
way
you,
I look at it.
but wouldn't you agree that that's just based off the scenario? Because like you're pretty much married, like you're
Oh,
common
no,
law.
no, no. I understand that, but here, let's be honest. I've seen what some of my married homies go through, like
Mhm.
really go through. Like I won't name names, but I had one of my homies, like literally, they were at the end of their relationship. They were married, they had kids, they had to deal with the whole situation, but they battled through it.
Yeah,
They both individually came to me about advice, and the only advice I gave them was this: I am not going to get into your marriage. That's you two to work out. My job as your friend is to stay friends with both of you. I have no dealing with either. Your shit is your shit. I'm your friend. You can come to me and blog about the shit that's bothering you, but the stuff about you two, because I know you two, I am not getting involved.
I don't know. Based off your, I think we need to zero in on what degree, because like if you're saying single people can't give advice in general, or like if you're not part of that camp, you can't give advice. I think that's kind of
Yeah.
inappropriate because like
No, I understand.
everyone can give insight on something based off perception. Sometimes different
Mhm.
perceptions lead to outcomes that are not there, right? Because like it could be biased at the same token. If you're talking to somebody who's
You're right.
married, who's giving advice to another married person, they can tell you, oh, just stick it out, tough it out, blah, 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 because you're
Mhm.
married, you have no choice. And then someone else might sit there and like you might assume a single person might say, you know what, fuck it, get a divorce if you don't like it, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
But that's not fair because some people will tell you from their perspective, be like a single person could be like, maybe you guys should work through it because
Mhm.
I'm envious of the fact that you have that kind of relationship, or there's some
Mhm.
strengths in there that are not available in the market right now, right? Because
Mhm.
I've seen that. I've told people, even ironically, I just came back from a trip, and I was with some of my older coworkers that are in long-term relationship. Like these
Yeah, yeah.
guys been with their spouses for like 25, 30 plus years, like
Deep.
unprecedented
Not
in
deep.
in our generation. And I told them straight up, I'm like, I envy you guys because of the fact that, you know, like for me to start and reach that like
Plateau.
threshold
Mhm.
of 25, 30, 40 years for one of them,
Mhm.
like that's when I retire, right? If I
Yeah, that's
start a
like two-thirds of
relationship,
your life. Yeah.
yeah, well, like when
No,
I
I get
start a
you.
relationship right now, if I would start tomorrow, I would
That's
be
retirement by the
retiring
time you're there.
and
Yeah.
celebrating like a 25th anniversary type thing. So it's
Mhm.
just amazing how it's just like whatever. So like obviously I can't really give them advice because they're grandfathered into the relationship and stuff like that. But
True.
like if I was to get insight from them and
Mhm.
then pass it on to another young couple,
Person.
I could
Understandable.
do that,
No,
right?
no, I am not talking about that. What I am talking about is people have this belief. All right, basically, what was happening, I'll give you the backstory of how it all came.
Mm,
Me and a friend of mine were talking, and there was another person sitting in that, sitting there talking, and that other person was on the precipice of leaving their relationship. Now, the person they were taking advice from was a single person, and the two of them, for the life of them, I'm listening, and I was not saying anything. I'm just realizing that the person who is telling the other person the advice has no idea how a long-term relationship works.
Yeah.
Like, they were giving them advice based on their single analogy, like how they would experience something. And I'm looking at it from a person who's been in a relationship for damn near 10 years. What he was saying was complete BS. Like, I didn't want to say that, and I didn't get involved in the situation. But me sitting there and listening to the advice that he was dispensing to this person was complete foolishness. Like, from a person who's been in a relationship aspect, I can see the counterpoint to everything he was saying. And I can see it from both their angles.
Yeah.
Like, I can see it from the wife's angle, and I can see it from his angle, because I've had to live my life for another person.
Mm.
So I understand that there's a give and take. Even if you don't like it, that's how you keep a relationship alive. That's why I said I would never say anything to a married person, because that's a whole nother dynamic together. I've watched married people. They think alike. They move alike. Well, the good ones anyway.
Yeah,
right?
but that's like a good relationship. So it's just like in all aspects, it's based off the individuals, because like there are some relationships where there's a dominant figure and they're okay with it. I remember just reading an article about Monique, like the famous Black actress. And
yeah, I remember. I think I read the same article.
Yeah, she admits that she lets her husband steer the ship.
The dominant figure in a
yeah, even when it comes to like multiple aspects in a relationship, it's okay. Like the opening article was just like, queens should let their kings train them.
Yeah.
Right. So at the end of the day, it's how the dynamic works between the two individuals and goes. It doesn't matter what your title, because we know some startup couples, young couples that do it better than older couples, and it's just because of the fact that they relate or understand each other.
That is quite true.
Or that's the dynamic that they're going for, right? Because there's a lot of.
I got a question for you.
Okay.
I got a question for you. You being the fact that you are not a father, and you don't have kids, but you have nieces, nephews, or whatever else, would you dispense advice to somebody who is having a newborn, who just had a newborn, knowing that you've never been there? You just think you might know something. Because as a parent, this happens to me and happens to all parents a lot. There's people who think they have an idea of what it's like to be a parent, and they think they can objectify their opinions, but it doesn't mean shit. It's just talk. We see it as that.
I think you have to be responsible with the information you give, and the person receiving it has to be aware that it's one of many opinions or many views on it. And like, information really is a collection of thoughts and perceptions to come to an idea, right? Because it's just like,
true.
Like I've had conversations about parenting, and people challenge me the same way, being like, oh, you don't have kids, you can't weigh into it. And I'm like, you know what? Like, to rule me out because I haven't experienced it, fine. Things like being like, I don't understand the struggle of waking up, the 4 a.m. feedings, the diaper changes and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. But I haven't been exposed to it because, like, like my little sister and I have like a 13-year age gap, right? So when she was younger, I was involved in
the entire dynamic,
some aspects of her upbringing, right? So, I do remember the inconvenience. Mind you, I wasn't the one responsible. It was usually my parents doing that, but like it still impacted. So, I can.
But there's a measure stick that you can use.
Right. And I can take it's transferable knowledge to sit here and say, based off of those experiences and my perception of the scenario, I can come to a conclusion and say this information is pertinent. Plus, there's other things I can give advice to, right? Like, disciplining a child is disciplining a child, right? And regardless of whether or not it's mine, it's just like, there's certain things where it's just like certain kids require structure and boundaries so they know
regardless of where they are,
right? Because like your kid's very well behaved for the most part. He has his moments where it's a given, right? Because he has some moments where he flares up. There's other moments where he outsmarts both you and Stephanie.
Oh dear God, all the time.
He's pretty clever, especially for someone his age. And I witnessed other friends with kids, because we're part of that demographic, we're offspring, and like the kid has no discipline. They're just a wild child, right? And it's just because like I get it. You go through your days and it's just like, it's hard being a parent and there's no handbook. I mean, that's one thing. Like,
Fact.
like if you typed in how to be a parent in Google, it'll be like, it'll probably respond, do you mean like you're gonna go crazy? Like it's just gonna tell you there's nothing. So
All fact.
yeah, so it's just one of those things, but you can still get insight from other people because like depending on the individual, they might give you a different perception or a perspective that would be like, hey, it might be worth considering. Because I've mentioned it. I was just like, some kids, it's just like okay, let me sum this down. When I had that conversation, they were kind of like pushing back and be like, oh, with your kids, da da da. And they're like, I'm like, you need to discipline your kids. And obviously the first thing that comes out of it is that you need to be
you don't have no kids.
And I'm like, well, no, first thing is that they say you don't have any kids, so you don't know.
Yeah.
Second thing, they're just
I know the parent, bro. I read the parent handbook. I know the defense.
Yeah, and then the second thing is just like, oh, well, when you mean discipline, are you talking about beating your kids? I'm like, no, I would honestly remind them that there is a causality to the behavior,
of discipline,
right? Yep. So it's just like, bro, if I was having some of the extremes that some of my friends with kids were having, I'd be like, I'll start taking stuff from my kids. Right? Like, bro, I'm like,
there's your degrees. You got to start off somewhere, and then you get to an end result, which is the ass whooping.
Right. Well, you know, I hope I don't have to go to corporate punishment, but I'd definitely take away some of their liberties and being like, okay, cool, right? Like, it'd be like little things like taking away their favorite snacks, taking out of the cupboards, being like the only thing that you can consume is water, you know, like, you know, the type of meals that they're getting and stuff like that. It wouldn't be the Gucci stuff that they're used to. It'd be like some basic, like,
it's called flexing parental control.
Right. Or it'd be like, I'll be taking away certain things, right? Like some parents are just like, okay, no video games, da 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 da. I'd be like, bro, don't fuck with me. I know tech. Like, I will disable the internet. I will
forget that. I'll disable the system.
Well, yeah, no, I would disable the system. Like, I would definitely, like, if my kids are there and be like, oh, like kids have cell phones these days and stuff like that, and be like, oh, no cell phone usage, da 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 da. I would call whoever, Rogers, whatever, and be like, yo, I need you to disable the data on this number.
You don't even need to do that now. It's called DMT parental lock.
No, I know that, but that's how far I would go. I wouldn't just simply be like, yo, I'm going to work on their discipline, because I need the child to understand that there are ramifications, because it's just like, bro, the real world works like that too.
But I think you're approaching that because you had a real world. Like, I leave this to you when I say I understand your point, and I'm going to add to that. I think where you come from when it comes to the exercise of your opinions, like you said, you come from a responsible point, and not to mention you try to take your point from experience, which a lot of people don't do, is why I'm saying that. The reason why I can say to you, I would take advice from you in my relationship. Why? Not because you've been in relationships, and not to mention you're a close friend to me. So not only do you understand the dynamic of my relationship, but you're a sane and comparable person. 90% of people who are dispensing advice is, let's be honest.
Yeah, and
the irrationality of you hear some people tell people when it comes to advice is retarded, bro. Let's take it from a grain of salt.
Yeah.
People aren't giving out good advice.
No.
That's why I made that post. It's because usually you hear people just shooting off their mouth and their opinion from the side of their hip with no experience in that realm. Like I said, I would never tell somebody who's married, an older, you know what I mean, an older couple who's been through it. Like, what the hell kind of experience do I know? Even though I've been in a relationship for over 10 years, what experience can I tell somebody who's been married for 30 years? Like, it's a whole different ball game, bro. That's a real relationship. That's like some shit that the time has tested.
Yeah. But yeah, to a certain extent, it's just one of those things where, you know, yes, validation comes in that aspect, but again, there's other people who are like, you know, they're in a relationship and they're like, take it from me, I'm in a relationship. You don't know, blah, blah, blah. Right? So
I mean, there's outliers, like people on both sides of the gamut that don't know shit, and I believe opinion is just that. It's just an opinion. But what I'm saying is the people dispensing the advice to take a certain understanding that they may not know shit.
Yeah, so at the end of it, I think the point that we're getting at is just that, like, for the most part, it's if you don't have a valid opinion that's conducive to like the actual well-being, it's just like, hey, you know what, like, I'm just gonna give it
if it's not to the benefit of both of them. Like if it's not the benefit of the couple, that's like even if the situation is going bad, if it's not the if them breaking up isn't for the benefit of them, why tell them that? Like, why are you going to tell your friend just because it's just easier for you to have a relationship with him? Oh, just break up with that bitch, bro. We're going to be at the club and go get some other. That's bad advice, bro. You know what I mean?
But again,
like it's terror. That's just people using that because, like I said, they're trying to give that opinion based on their personal life, not giving an opinion based on the situation at hand.
I mean, you derive opinions based off of your personal experience, but it's stuff that's conducive to the scenario. If you're not in a position to fully understand what's going on, then you shouldn't give advice. But that's about anything else, right? Like, you know, that's the real premise. Whether or not you're single, because that's like sitting here and being like, we're not going to get advice from our parents. Or like, you know, people above us who's been in it, like, oh, I've been in a relationship for 45 years and I'm telling you to stick it out because of the fact that I've been in it for so long. And be like, yeah, but this relationship is toxic, right? I'm not like, it's like, you know.
But you can take that objectively now. You can look at it and be like, okay, it's just like all advice. I'm taking advice and saying I'm going to use pieces from, like, a friend of mine as the rebuttal had a great rebuttal. Shout out to my boy, he says, yeah. He basically says that he doesn't like the sentiment of what I said because he says all advice is good advice to some degree, even if it's damaging. Because he says you take in the advice and you weigh it in, and then you take pieces from each person's opinion and create your own. So therefore, it doesn't matter if that person has no idea of it. You can take the foolishness they're saying and find some grain of truth to what they're saying. So I understand in that regard, but I still don't believe that. It's like me saying that, all right, I'm a freaking contractor. I'm going to tell a surgeon how to, like, you know what I mean? Hey, I saw this on Discovery Channel that one time. That's what it sounds like to me when I hear people give advice. You know what I mean? It's like a shot in the dark. It might be right, but it's still foolishness to try and tell a doctor what the hell he's doing, bro.
Yeah, bro.
He's been through it.
I think you're being a little biased on that aspect. It's just like that's
true. No. I admit it. True.
That's a stretch. Because just like, you know, a medical professional versus a contractor might be completely different. But when it comes to realms where it's just like there is no master, right? You can't get a certification for relationships just because of the fact that you're in a different status, right? True. We trust doctors because they go through trainings. We trust electricians because they go through training, a certain standard that everyone follows. So we can hear that saying that being truth or absolute. But when it comes to relation advice, I was reading some of the things in the chat. That's why my eyes keep going back and forth. And it's Anthony made a good
you're
point.
Reading the same shit, right?
Well, like Anthony, one of our boys,
he
Anthony made a good point. And he was just like, you know, it's not for you or I to or anyone to decide whether or not advice is good, right? Which is true, right? You take the advice because depending on the insight or the information, it might give you a different perspective, but you're supposed to digest the information first and apply it in your best interest, right? You shouldn't just take things blindly because someone is that, because it's just like, it's like if one of our mutual friends was in a situation and they're like, yo, guys, I need advice. And I chime in and say, yo, this isn't working for you, blah, blah, blah. Here's the reasons. And you say, yo, stick it out. But it's not fair that your advice would have more merit because you're in a relationship. If the information chooses saying, yo, she's taking advantage of you, da, 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 or the female.
Yeah, but you know the situation. No. But that's a different discussion. That's a whole, what I am talking about is somebody purely giving advice. Like this was guiding advice. This wasn't like a situation where two people were wrong for right and you know information. This was like I told you, this was probably somebody guiding a person into foolishness, like literally telling them the worst shit you could ever hear.
But at what level makes it guiding advice? What level makes it guiding?
Because of basically he was trying to get him to stop doing what he was at his core ethic. Like, I don't want to tell the situation because the person could be watching and know exactly what we're talking about, and it's not in their best interest. But what I'm trying to say is like they're trying. That person was basically like, "Yo, I wouldn't be." I basically one of the things they were saying is like, without giving it all away, was like, "Yo, I wouldn't let my girl do this, this, and this. Yo, I would control that type of thing. Yo, fam, if I'm in a relationship, my girl can't do that type of shit."
Okay.
And I'm like, bro, you're never gonna be in a relationship because I'm like, it's like you can't be a person has to want to do that for you.
But that's why I feel like, what you intended to highlight versus what you're implying is two different things. Because the
Mhm.
way I'm reading it is just like, let's say we're at a restaurant, right? Neutral environment, and you see a couple get into an argument, right?
Okay.
And then the guy just ups and storms off, right? None of us knows what happened. You just hear like,
True.
you know, I don't want to talk about this right now. We're not dealing with this. And he just ups and leaves, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone tries to console the woman who's sitting at the restaurant being upset, right?
Okay.
You can't go around and say, oh, well, you know, the couple over there, the older couple has
He's
better
gonna get
advice
better
than
advice than a single
couple
person
than the
sitting in a corner.
server who might be single, and say whatever. It's just like, you know, if you have a precedent saying, you know, you guys should be able to talk this out, or, you know, based off of the situation, you shouldn't be in an abusive relationship. It's biased based off the information, but that woman can still take all the information and determine, hey, you know what, is it worth me going back to my boyfriend, husband, fiance, and deal with it, or just be like, yo, fuck it, hot girl summer, and move on, right?
But that's why I said I go with what that's what I'm saying. I'm more leaning to what Anthony said. It's just the dispensing of advice is based on the opinion and what you gain from the opinion. So like I said, that's why I referenced it. Like, because he was the only person that made sense. Like, out of all the everything that was being said in there, he's the person that had the objective opinion that made me think about it. That's why I said I know I'm being biased.
Exactly.
Admitting to that.
You know, it was a great fire starter for all intents and purposes, and I can see why, especially a lot of our female friends that jumped on it were just like, yo, you can't say that, everyone has an opinion and stuff like that, which is true. However, there are some extremes, right? Because if there's someone who is like, you know, a complete like fuck boy being like, yo, fuck that bitch, you know what, there's plenty of bitches in the sea, or you know what, you should be able to control them, and da 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 da. Like, you could take that advice, because like, I feel in a relationship, and whether or not it's the reason why I'm still single, is that you and your partner should influence each other. And there also should be, at the end of the day, there's never going to be equality. There's always going to be a driving force in a relationship.
No, you are 100% right on that. I think you're 100% right.
Yeah, you can take turns on what components you take point on, right? But there's never going to be 50-50, because it's impossible, right? Like, it's just like a democracy. We need an outstanding vote, otherwise we can't move forward on a consensus.
So, bro, I can back that up.
So it's just like, and it's just like, we know there's some people who don't believe that notion, and whether or not they're in a successful relationship, like some people are being like this, of like, they should be 100% passive. They should be 100% submissive. This is more predominantly female, but it's becoming a trend with dudes. You know, there's a certain degree of dominance that people are saying, yeah, I have to control every aspect of it. It's just like, no, right? But everybody's opinion is different.
Bro, here's the fundamentals of how I've seen relationships throughout my entire life, and I've seen a lot of them. I'm talking about from like watching my parents, like my parents' age range, to like, because remember, we're like 36, 37 now. So we've seen some shit in between the time that we've been here. Like, we watched all three generations of this, and what I've been noticing is the relationships that last, just like you said, they know how to take turns. Like, I was watching a story on our podcast. Shout out I Am Athlete, because I watch that podcast and I like what they're doing. So one of the things they say on the podcast is, these guys are athletes. They're multimillionaires. They've made all the bread they can. They've been the spearhead of their family. But the one thing they had to learn was to be the submissive person in their relationship later on, when they weren't an athlete anymore. Why? Because their wife, their significant other, had played that role. They had done everything that was possible. They did with the kids, handled the finances, all the other stuff to allow them to be athletes. Now it was the wife's turn. They realized that they had given everything of themselves, so now it was their turn to reciprocate that to their wives. Some of these guys is walking around carrying strollers, you know, picking up stuff now. Now they're like, one of their wives had a Fortune 500 company who demands like $100 million in real estate. And he's like, bro, I can't even tell my wife nothing no more. She's making more money than I was as a professional athlete. He's like, it's one of those things where I fostered it. I grew that, but I love it. He's like, now I get to see what she had to go through. He's like, I got more of an appreciation for my wife now because I got to see her raise them babies and never understood. Now I'm doing it. So now I understood when she's cranky at 4:30 in the afternoon, and when I came in and I asked her what's wrong, and she don't want to talk to me because she don't want to drag that emotion to me. He's like, now I can understand that she wasn't being difficult. She was saving it from me. So it's like he got a chance to see. So I totally support what you're saying on that because it's a 50-50 thing. Somebody got to steer the ship, but eventually that other person got to steer the ship too.
Yeah. So, we can digress in all that aspect. And, there's a lot of opinions on it. At the end of the day, right? Like, if you have an opinion worth saying, then go right ahead, contribute. But if you're just being like completely biased or simple or fickle when it comes to being like, yo, fuck that bitch, like take him for all he's got, get that bag, that kind of stuff, that's just destructive behavior. And nobody wants that. Like, you're
but that's kind of commonplace. That's
yeah, exactly.
A lot of my dog. That's why I'm saying those people shouldn't have an opinion on a relationship. They don't know nothing about it.
Right. And like all that thought process should be thrown in the bin. But at the end of the day, like we're responsible for the information that we take in and process. So if you go and take bad advice from a bad person, that's your own bad. Like you can't blame.
I don't think they know that they're but I think in the relation what is today is what I call the microwave relationship. We're literally in the like nobody cooks a relationship anymore. Like nobody goes through it before they get married. Like nobody stays in a like we're literally in this microwave shit. People throw it in the bag and expect the whole family to appear in 2 months.
Well, you see, you're going on to a different.
They don't know any better.
People don't know any better, but it's just like you're not designed to foster a relationship because you're being inundated with so many things, right? One aspect of it is that you're being encouraged by a lot of things in order to get into a relationship. We're not talking about like circa 1990 where it's just like, yo, like you work within the small realm. Like you see relationships all the time. Everywhere there's couples. Right? It's just like you see it on TV and car commercials, you see it on stuff, you're being inundated. How many dating apps are there? Like there's this new one that I just heard about for like
there's a new one every week, bro.
Yeah, for like
start a Christian Mingle profile. You might get lucky.
Bro, it's not even Christian Mingle, stop your foolishness. There's this new one, I can't remember what it's called, or our fans will probably know, but it's literally for people with kids. Right, your face.
They're throwing kids in there. I like that's hilarious.
Well, it
makes sense. It does make sense. She got kids, you got kids. It's easier for you two to link now.
Right. So put in the dynamic. So at every stage, there's almost an app for that, so to speak, right? And it's exposing you. It's hyper inundating people with relationship. So you engage in it. And some people want to freaking. Some people want to slow burn through a relationship because they're under that impression that they have plenty of time. Other people are just like, yo, I'm in a relationship. We need to be doing this. We need to be checking things off because I need to boost my Instagram photos. I need to boost my profiles.
Here's a question for you. And it follows the same question, what we're on the lines of. A person like me, how can I give you advice on being single in today's market when I haven't been single in the last 10 years? I know nothing about today's market, bro. Like, I don't even know how to like pick, like, even though you always tell me I get hit on all the other shit because like I'm in a relationship, but I don't know this market, bro. How would I give you advice? But
at the end of the day, you're not really giving advice to being single. You're giving advice on how to end up with someone because that is the objective. No one goes into a relationship working to be single again, right? That's the ground floor. So you can give advice and being like, yo, Rohan, you're too picky, or yo, that girl was all right for you. Your standards are maybe a little bit too high or inappropriate. You can call bullshit, right? Or you could be like, yo, that last girl, you let her run you through the mud. Yo, you need to make sure that
I have done that to you.
Right. So again, it goes against your statement. You can provide advice because of the fact that you have a different position. It's just like, I'm going to show you a way. It's just like, being financially successful. You're going to show somebody who's not how to become financially successful. Whether or not that advice is 100% applicable, you could still be like, yo, based off of market trends or investing or blah, blah, blah. And that person can take things that can go. So again, it's how the ones who has information, projects the information, whether or not you have valid information to provide to the conversation, and of course, how that person receiving the information takes it and applies it to the livelihood. Because some people just want to do what's easy. So if they hear, oh,
no, you're bro,
like,
that's where you're hitting. That's
like,
where you're hitting me
like
right there. Because I believe that's 90% of the root of the problem.
Because exactly, think about it. You, me, and that other guy who says you should control your bitch. In a sense, we're all saying the same thing, right? But I wouldn't use the term control. And I wouldn't make it so extreme. I'll be like, yo, I need to influence her in order to make sure that we're both going in the same direction. And that allows us to grow and ideally reach a consensus, but she can add her opinions to that as well. And I have no problem being like, I wouldn't mind being influenced by my partner as well, if it is something that trends towards both of our mutual success. If my girl comes to me and says, yo, Rohan, you're a great photographer, I'm going to influence you to go that way, and opposed to sticking with the marketing, because of the fact that I feel that you'd be able,
you're going to make a better photographer,
yielding more money. Yeah. Exactly. I wouldn't object to that, right?
No, that's a different. But that's what I was saying to you. It's like there's a difference in the market controls. Like, I'll take the Kevin Samuels approach. There's always outliers. There's always great people who can give advice. But what I am talking about is from a majority of people, they give bad advice, man. The majority of these people out here, like, I will concede. My opinion cannot be one base. I will fully admit to you, Anthony, and a few of y'all were right. It is good to take opinions from everybody, but I still stand firm in this, that 90% of these people out here, like, unless I'm taking advice from you, dog, I can understand that. I can take advice from somebody who is objectively qualified. You're objectively qualified because you're objectively qualified in life.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, you're a secure person, but a good amount of these people ain't secure out here and then still want to give advice to you. Like, people who fail, like my personal favorite, the people who fail at relationships are the ones who want to give out the best advice about how to keep a relationship. Bro, you just blew through 6. You failed 3 marriages and you want to give advice on how to keep a relationship?
Again, it all depends on the information, because you can sit here and say, yeah, I've been divorced twice, so I know what not to do, right? So
but that's a difference.
Right.
I'm talking about this man is sitting here trying to tell him how to keep a relationship. Listen to what I'm saying. It's a completely different dynamic.
I mean, depending on the information, it might be, because he could be a dog and saying, yo, when I was in relationships, I thought I had to be dominant, 100% control, 100% knowing where she is. It's just like, bitch, where you going on Friday? Where you at? Da, da, da. He burns through 3 relationships, and now he's just like, you know what? Like, I used to think this way, but now maybe I should change my opinion. Be like, all right, cool.
No, but like I said, no, that is not what I am talking about. You're dispensing advice. What you're saying right now is using an objective amount of opinion and then saying that because of my experience, this is what I think about your relationship. That is not what I'm talking. I am talking about.
You're
I don't know shit.
You're pretty much talking about grandstanding. So, like, the people who sit there.
You knew perfect. Yeah. You knew the exact words to use for it. You knew the term grandstanding, because there's no sense, bro.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there is such thing as bad advice, but really it's just bad actions and bad comprehension, right? Like, you can take bad information and make it good, and being like, oh, what not to do, or be able to be like, let me take that to a grain of salt, or being the undertone. It's just like, what does that person really mean, right? Or where am I going to apply that knowledge? Because, like, there's always some truth in information. But you kind of have to be able to derive from it. But at the end of the day, like we're saying, you know, if you're not good with the advice, don't bother giving it, because you're just freaking blowing smoke and, you know, generating noise. Just like,
don't do it.
You know, if you have something that's conducive, that's really like, hey, this is a winning note, share it. But if you're just gonna sit there and exasperate the whole problem,
from the hip and shit,
the best thing you can do for that person is keep it to yourself. But that's my opinion.
And on that, he said it all. For once, at the end of it, I ain't got to say shit.
Nice. All right. Well, for those of you who know what to do, we love you for it. For those who don't, you know, we need you to like and subscribe and share your stuff, because we definitely want to grow. So we have a reason to keep doing this.
Oh yeah, and by the way, August 9th, I will be performing live at the Augustus Theater. If y'all want to know, we're gonna throw the flyer at the end of this one, and please show your support.
Yeah, do that. You know, he likes singing. He's good at it, so you might as well come hear him do it.
And it's the first time I'm performing with my band, man. It's gonna be epic. Like, like I finally got a chance to get a band behind me. I've had rehearsal practice. This shit is going to be epic.
Well, on that note, we love you. We appreciate you, and we definitely want you to grow. So yeah, keep moving in the right direction, and by all means, have a good one.
Yeah. Love you like I love yourself.